Hello everyone and welcome to Tech Fix Flicks. In the early weeks of 2019, it appears that the age of ownership of physical media has come to an end. The increasing popularity of downloadable gaming titles, streaming movies, television shows and music appears to be bringing the curtain down on the era of the disc, and with it, the institutions which supported it. Yet many of us have extensive collections of CDs dating back to the 80s, DVDs from the late 90s onward, and a decade of Blu-Ray discs. What is the fate of these collections in a world without physical ownership? In this three-part series, we will recreate physical media collections as data files which can be stored and played back on Windows PC, Mac, iOS and Android devices, allowing continued access to our media whilst archiving the physical discs, providing a best of both worlds model. In this episode, we will consider data discs, returning in part 2 to look at DVD or Blu-ray movies and TV shows, before concluding the series with audio CDs. Which brings us to the elephant in the room, namely piracy. The techniques which are shown in this series can easily be used to create and distribute copies of copyright works. This is absolutely not our intention. You should familiarise yourself with the relevant copyright laws applicable in your country of residence, and should, at minimum, never use the techniques described here for anything other than personal use. Even here, the issue of format shifting, which is converting from one format to another, even for personal use, has been controversial, and is contrary to UK law at the time of the publication of this video. We therefore suggest that any copies made are for personal use only, that the copies never be shared with friends or sold locally or over the internet, and that if you sell your physical discs, it's only fair that you also delete the digital copies. Although the law has yet to catch up here, there are legitimate reasons for wanting to format shift, not least because devices are increasingly shunning optical drives to shave vital millimetres from thickness and reduce weight, that media may be consumed over multiple devices and therefore streamed from a network device or over cloud storage. Throughout this series, we will rely solely upon free software downloadable via the internet. This tutorial assumes that you have access to an optical drive from which you can read the original discs. Once you have archived the discs, the digital files can then be transferred to any other machine. The most effective drive for this purpose is a Blu-ray drive, which should be able to read both DVDs and CDs in addition to Blu-rays. Failing that, a DVD drive should be able to read all except Blu-rays, whilst a CD drive will only read CDs. In the event that you don't have access to an optical drive, they can be acquired for £20 or less for an external drive, which is roughly equivalent to the cost of 2 new CD albums. We have linked to a selection of external drives available from Amazon in the written description accompanying this video. So, join us as we ditch the discs. What do we mean by data discs? Essentially, this tutorial deals with anything other than movies and audio CDs, which are covered in parts 2 and 3 respectively. Operating systems, applications, office suites, utilities, encyclopedias, games, clip art, photographs, fonts, or collections of personal files burnt to discs. Our objective in this tutorial is to create an ISO file, which is a single file containing the entirety of the physical disc. Once the file is created, it can be copied like any other file, but is treated like a physical disc by the operating system. To create the ISO file, we will use BurnAware Free, which is available from www.burnaware.com. Click on the download link to proceed. Note that there are paid versions, namely Premium and Professional, available, but the free version is sufficient for our purposes. We click on the download button to initiate the download, and are taken to the file forum page which hosts the file. Resist the temptation to click on any Start Now links. These are merely adverts and wait for your download to commence. BurnAware is a small download and it will complete quickly. As we are running Google Chrome, we can click the upward pointing arrow, which turns downward and pops up a menu from which we have the option to open, which immediately runs the downloaded file. On most systems, this will launch the User Account Control Safety Net, and we click Yes here, as this prompt was clearly generated as a consequence of our actions. We accept the default installation language of English, although note that others are accessible via the drop-down menu. And the setup window which opens duly launches, from which we select Next to proceed. As ever, we are presented with a license agreement, and again, acceptance is mandatory in order to proceed with the installation. We therefore activate the radio button to show our acceptance, and click Next to proceed. We now have the option to define the installation path for the software. The default can be selected simply by clicking Next, although regular viewers will know that we prefer a custom installation path to maintain an organised directory structure. We can also create an appropriate entry in the Start menu, or alternatively select the option not to create a Start menu folder, and again we click Next. From the additional tasks we accept the defaults, although we later delete the desktop shortcut and click Next once more. A summary of our choices is presented, and clicking Next begins the installation of the software onto our Windows device. A green progress bar moves from left to right to indicate the status of our installation. Once complete, the installer will now try to lure us into installing software which we have not requested. This helps the software publisher pay its bills, but we object to this, and always decline such advances. In this case, we are offered Opera, a product which we have installed in an earlier tutorial, but this is irrelevant as we never accept software bundled in this way. We untick the option to install. Incidentally, the additional software presented will vary with each installation, so be wary and be prepared to decline. This type of installation preys upon the fact that you have been routinely clicking Next and are keen to move on to the software proper. Once we are certain that we have unticked, we click Next to proceed. We are met with more of the same. This time we select Decline to skip a second unwanted installation. Although we respect BurnAware as a product, we find this method of pushing software distasteful. Finally, we reach the concluding screen and can click Finish to exit the setup process. The main window for BurnAware is now visible, although behind it a browser window appears thanking us for installing the software. For ease of reference, we close the open browser window, leaving only the BurnAware window visible. And we now zoom into the interface. In doing so, we now physically insert our data disk into the disk drive, which brings about the appearance of this message. Note that our disk has been detected and is shown as the D drive for the system. If we have multiple drives, we will be able to select any one of them using the drop-down menu. Now, we need to tell the system where it should save the file which we intend to create. We click the Browse button, which leads us, by default, to our Downloads folder, although we could change this to any destination of our choosing. We type a name, in this instance test disk, although in the real world this would be something far more descriptive, typically the title of the software. The file type ISO is applied by default, and this is a widely compatible file format handled natively by Windows. We click Save to register our preferences, although note that no file is created yet. We return to the Copy to Image screen, which now shows the details of our source disk and path to our destination file. Clicking upon Copy begins the process. The window which appears clearly shows the source disk, destination file, progress of the duplication process, time elapsed, and remaining. We may wish to take a break, dependent upon the volume of data to be transferred and the time remaining. And there also exists the option to shut down the PC entirely upon completion of the task. Once the copy process is completed, a message will clearly state this, and at this stage we can eject the master disk and store it safely. The file created can now be used in place of the disk. We have achieved our objective and can ditch the disk. We now navigate to our Downloads folder, where we find the test disk file which we have created. Viewing its properties, we note that it is 481 megabytes in size. Opening the file, we note that it is now launched as a virtual disk drive, labelled G. Each ISO file we launch will be assigned a new drive label, and it's good practice to eject virtual disks after each use to avoid congestion. One issue unique to virtual disks is that, unlike physical disks, they will not auto-run upon insertion, so you may be wondering where to go when presented with a list of files. Typically, when running a program, you will be looking for an application which you can identify from the type column. Failing that, look for files named Setup or Install. Note that we have left the original disk in the physical drive, and it remains in place as the D drive. And for comparison, here is the size of the original disc, again at 481 megabytes. There are a few bytes difference between the ISO and the original disc, but the content is entirely replicated. Now, repeating this process with each data disc in our collection will entirely negate the use of original discs. Join us in part 2, when we archive our movie and TV collection. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Hopefully you found it useful. If you can provide a better, faster or more economical solution, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like more, you are very welcome to subscribe to the TechFixFlix YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button. Subscription is of course entirely free and provides easy access to all of the videos posted here. Clicking on the neighbouring bell icon means you will be notified whenever a new video is posted. You can also keep in touch by following the official TechFixFlix Twitter account. Until your next TechFix, goodbye.